There is a federal rule that says a jar cannot be called mayonnaise unless it is at least 65% oil. Not mostly oil. Not oil-based. 65%. By weight. Minimum. Plus egg yolk and an acid. Miss that number by a single point, and the product legally becomes something else. A dressing. A spread. A sandwich sauce. The word on the front of the jar changes, and almost nobody notices it change. That one rule explains most of this aisle. It explains why the light versions are called something different, why the olive oil versions are mostly not olive oil, and why two jars sitting side by side at similar prices can be fundamentally different foods. 7 things in the mayonnaise aisle worth understanding, and 3 that genuinely hold up. Number 1 is the jar most households buy without ever reading. But it starts with that legal definition, because everything else hangs off it. The usual note. Everything here comes from federal standards of identity, labeling rules, published nutrition data, and the ingredient statements themselves. Where the evidence is contested, I will say so. I am describing regulation and labeling, not accusing anyone of a crime. First, what mayonnaise actually is, because it is a genuinely clever piece of food science. Mayonnaise is an emulsion. Oil and water do not mix, and mayonnaise is oil suspended in a small amount of water-based liquid, vinegar or lemon juice, held apart by the lecithin in egg yolk. The oil is broken into droplets so small that they cannot find each other again, which is why a spoonful of something that is 2/3 oil feels thick and creamy rather than greasy. That is the whole product: oil, egg yolk, acid, salt. 4 ingredients, made in 90 seconds with a whisk, and stable for months in a jar because the acid and the salt make it hostile to bacteria. Everything beyond those 4 ingredients on a commercial label is solving a problem that a factory has and a kitchen does not. Surviving a hot warehouse, a cold truck, a year of shelf life, and a consumer who leaves it out. Number 7. Dressing, spread, and the words that are not mayonnaise. Look at the front of the jar, not the shape of it. The shape is identical. If the product does not meet the standard, 65% oil, egg, acid, it cannot use the word mayonnaise alone. So it is sold as dressing, salad dressing, sandwich spread, or increasingly as something with a brand-invented name that avoids the category entirely. None of that is deceptive, and some of those products are perfectly good. But they are different foods. A dressing typically replaces some of the oil with water, starch, and gums to rebuild the texture, and that swap is the entire reason the name changed. The tell is the word itself. Mayonnaise is a regulated term. Dressing is not. Number 6. Made with olive oil, and the oil that is actually in it. This is the most reliable trick in the aisle, and it is the same one that runs the salad dressing shelf. Federal labeling requires ingredients in descending order by weight. On the great majority of jars advertising olive oil on the front, the first oil listed is soybean or canola, and the olive oil sits well down the list. The claim is satisfied by including some. The same applies to avocado oil versions, which have become the premium option in this category. Some genuinely use avocado oil as the only oil. Others use a blend and advertise the expensive half. The ingredient list settles it in one glance, and there is a large price gap between the two, so it is worth the glance. If a jar is truly single oil, it will say so plainly. 100% avocado oil, or made only with olive oil, because that is worth advertising properly. Number 5. Light, reduced fat, and what fills the gap. Mayonnaise is fat. That is not a flaw, it is the definition. So when a manufacturer removes the fat, something has to occupy the space. Read a light version and you will typically find water listed first or second, followed by modified food starch, and often maltodextrin, gums, and sugar. The oil percentage drops below the standard, which is why the front usually says dressing rather than mayonnaise. The result is a genuinely lower-calorie product. It is also a product where you are buying water and starch at mayonnaise prices, and where a lot of people find themselves using twice as much to get the same effect, which puts the calories back. There is a better move hiding in that arithmetic, and it is on the list of 3 at the end. Number 4. The eggs and the pasteurization question. Commercial mayonnaise is made with pasteurized egg, which is why the raw egg worry attached to homemade mayonnaise does not apply to a jar off the shelf. That distinction matters in the other direction too. Mayonnaise made at home with a raw yolk carries the ordinary raw egg risk, small but real, and it is a genuine consideration for anyone pregnant, elderly, very young, or immune-compromised. Pasteurized shell eggs solve it entirely and are sold in most large stores. While we are here, the picnic myth deserves correcting. Commercial mayonnaise is acidic enough that it is not the thing that spoils a potato salad. The chicken, the potatoes, and the eggs sitting in the sun are. Mayonnaise has spent a century taking the blame for the temperature of everything around it. Number 3. EDTA, and the ingredient people get alarmed about. Calcium disodium. EDTA appears on a large share of commercial jars, and it reliably shows up in ingredient scare content. Its job is straightforward. It binds trace metals that get into the product from equipment and ingredients, and those metals accelerate the oxidation that turns oil rancid. Without it, or without another antioxidant, a jar goes stale tasting much faster. It is an approved additive used in small quantities, and the safety assessments at those levels are reassuring. That is the honest position. What it tells you is not that the product is dangerous, it is that the product was designed for a long shelf life. A jar without it is generally one that expects to be eaten sooner. Number 2. Sugar, where you did not expect it. Mayonnaise itself is usually low in sugar. Most standard jars carry very little. The variants are a different story. Sandwich spreads, salad dressing-style products, and flavored mayonnaises frequently carry sugar or high-fructose corn syrup in the first several ingredients, and the sweeter regional styles are built around it deliberately. It does not read as sweet because the acid and the salt are covering it. If you have ever wondered why one brand tastes noticeably different from another when the ingredient lists look similar, the sugar line usually explains it before anything else does. Number 1. The jar nobody reads and what is actually in it. Everything converges on the standard jar in most refrigerator doors. Read it in order. Soybean oil first, then water, then eggs or egg yolks, then vinegar, then salt, sugar, lemon juice, and calcium disodium EDTA plus natural flavor. That is a real mayonnaise. It meets the federal standard, and it is a well-made industrial product. Two things are worth knowing about it. The oil is a refined seed oil, which is a topic that generates enormous argument online and far less certainty than either side claims. The mainstream nutritional position is that these oils are fine in normal use, and I am not going to overstate a debate that is not settled. And a serving on the panel is 1 tablespoon, which is roughly a third of what most people put on a sandwich. That is the honest read. Not a scandal. A cheap, stable, well-engineered product where the serving size on the label and the serving size on your bread are not the same thing. So how do you actually read a jar in the 10 seconds you have at the door? Check whether the word mayonnaise appears alone. If it says dressing or spread, oil has been replaced by water and starch. Find the first oil in the ingredient list. That is the oil you are buying, whatever the front says. Look at where sugar sits. In the first 4 ingredients means a sweetened product. And read the serving size, then multiply by what you actually use. Now the 3 that hold up. First, a jar that meets the standard with a short list. Oil, eggs, vinegar or lemon juice, salt, and little else. They exist at ordinary supermarkets. They cost slightly more, and they taste noticeably of egg and acid rather than of nothing. Second, single oil versions where the oil is the one on the front. If you are paying the avocado oil premium, the ingredient list should say avocado oil and stop there. When it does, you got what you paid for. When it lists soybean oil first, you paid a premium for a blend. Third, and this is the one that actually changes things, making it yourself. An egg yolk, a teaspoon of mustard, a squeeze of lemon, and oil poured in slowly while you whisk. 90 seconds, or 20 with a stick blender in a jar. No stabilizers, no gums. The oil is whatever you choose, and it tastes like an entirely different food. It keeps a few days rather than a year, which is the trade you are making, and it is the reason restaurant sandwiches taste better than yours. The pattern across all 7 is the same. Nothing here is a scam. It is a regulated product with a precise legal definition, sitting beside a shelf of things that are not quite that product and are named accordingly, with the difference printed on the front in a word most people have never been told to read. The word is either mayonnaise or it isn't. Start